Howdy, strangers, and welcome back to the Nightly Show with Taco. If it's not nighttime, you're still here. So it's been a little bit since I have last done one of these podcast episodes, and I just gotta say, it's great to be back. I don't know how long it's actually been. I think it's been 3 weeks ago. Still, just a little bit, almost a month now. Anyways, new update, and with new update comes new changes. We got two new pistols, which I've already made a video on, and I said in that video that I was going to talk about the new balance changes that came to the game because, obviously with PvP, a lot of things are going to change with these changes. I just kind of want to give my opinion on them. I probably could have made this more like an actual video and actually structured it, but I decided to go ahead and do a podcast episode. That way I do less editing, less work, and I can just go ahead and talk about it and do my thoughts. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start off. We're going to do the primaries first and then go to the secondaries. We're just going to do them in order as it is in the changelog. So first gun up is the AA-12. It's got its pellet count increased to 9, projectile damage increased to 17, head, torso, legs, projectile damage decreased to 29, 21, and 11, spread increased to 44, muzzle velocity decreased to 1,100 studs per second, range decreased to 465 studs. Now, personally, I don't think the AA-12 really needed a nerf or a buff. I think it was kind of fine as is, because honestly, I'd prefer to have... Shotguns are a very touchy subject in BR5, especially in PvP, of course. But I think I'd rather have a gun that is bad rather than really good. I feel like instead of having, have the AA-12 really, really busted, I think I'd rather have it at being at bad, because I think right now the AA-12 is considered bad by most people. I'm sure there's still people who complain because, shotgun good in CQC, big surprise. But it's just important to talk about because it's like, AA-12, I know some people want to get it buffed, and I am one of those people. I really would like to see the AA-12 be good, but at the same time, I don't want it to be so good that it's just what everyone uses, and I don't want it to be busted. So I think it's kind of good, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of an unnecessary nerf. So I did actually play a couple games with the AA-12, and I played actually a couple games with all of the guns, so that way I can kind of get an idea of how big the changes are to them. And the AA-12 doesn't really feel different. It's still pretty much the same. It's still really good in CQC despite the spread increase. And it falls off a little bit hard at long range. It's definitely noticeable, but you can still kill at a fairly decent range, especially for, a shotgun. The pellet count isn't a crazy increase. I don't know what it was before. It's now at 9. So I'm going to go ahead and assume it's 8 or something, maybe. I don't know. But what's interesting is you can actually, you can't one-shot minimum, right? So, at a very minimum, if all 9 pellets hit the legs, which is 11 damage, you do 99 damage. So you have to be really unlucky for that to happen. But honestly, since it's an auto shotgun, shouldn't be that big of a deal. So still pretty good damage, considering for what it is. So, yeah, I'm going to move on to now the AK-103. Now, the AK-103 got a nerf along with the AK-74, which we'll get in right after this one. AK-103, head, torso, arms, and legs, projectile damage decreased to 89, 58, 42, and 40. Now, that sounds like a lot, but when you consider that you can literally just slap on a long barrel, you basically reverse it. You still get one-shot headshot, and, it's the appeal that made the AK-103 better than the AK-74 that's got one-shot headshot. And with a long barrel, you can one-shot headshot and two-tap anywhere besides the legs. So it's basically the old AK-103, and the old AK-103 was good, but the AK-74 kind of overshadowed it because it was just kind of better. Yeah, so it's very good right now. It's what I'm running right now in PvP, and I think it's probably the best gun currently for PvP because it's got a fairly fast fire rate. Recoil is very controllable. Two-tap anywhere besides legs, which honestly you're not going to hit the legs a lot unless you're just really bad at aiming. So yeah, I'd highly recommend using the AK-103. Now I'm going to talk about the AK-74. Now, the AK-74 was definitely the best gun before this balance change got rolled around. And I know people started figuring out the AK-74 was the best gun, near the start of Operation Resurgence. And I was using it before our Operation Resurgence, and near the end of Operation Vipers when I started using it and realized, oh my gosh, the 74 is the best gun in the game. But AK-74 got a bunch of changes. It got its... torso projectile damage increased to 58, which is kind of a weird change, but alright. Rate of fire increased to 635 rounds per minute. Range increased to 124 studs, but the nerfs are just completely outweigh it. Head, Arms and legs projectile damage decreased to 89, 42, and 40. Muzzle velocity decreased to 2,175 studs per second. And camera recoil increased to 42. Now, the recoil was still pretty controllable, so it's not like the recoil part matters too much, but it's the fact that they decreased the projectile damage, because now the whole thing with the AK-74's made it good is lower recoil than the AK-103, and while it didn't have one-shot headshot, it was a two-tap literally anywhere, just like the AK-103, but it was just more controllable and had a faster fire rate than the AK-103. At least I think it did. I could have been wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure AK-74 had a faster fire rate and was just more accurate, which is why I preferred it over that, despite the fact, AK-103 has one-shot headshot. Anyways, not the point. AK-74 with the extended barrel is still a 3-tap to arms and legs, which is super, it's still a good gun, don't get me wrong, but it's such a super big deal when you consider how good it was before. So, it may not be as good as it was, however, it is still a very, very powerful gun, and I think I might still use it sometimes, but right now, AK-103 is basically just better than it, because with long barrel, you still get one-shot headshot and a 2-tap to torso and arms, so it's like, now there's actually a good reason to use the AK-103 over the AK-74. Now, keeping in the trend of the AKs, we have the AK-74U, as I like to call it. Actually, it's the AKS-74UN, but you know what? Whatever, call it whatever you want. I'm calling it the old name. Rate of fire was increased to 720 rounds per minute. I think it used to be 700, so not a crazy increase. Muzzle velocity increased to 1,805 studs per second. Head, torso, arms, and legs projectile damage decreased to 84, 48, 34, and 31. Range decreased to 990 studs. So the fire rate change might not seem like a big deal. However, it is pretty noticeable. It feels more like an actual PDW now rather than like a wannabe assault rifle. That's what I've kind of felt like whenever I used it. It definitely did feel more like a PDW. Slapping on an extended barrel makes it a 2-tap torso rather than the standard 3-tap torso. So that is definitely worth running. I believe it also makes it to a 3-tap to arms, but I don't think it makes it a 3-tap to legs. I could be wrong on that. So with extended barrel and AK-74UN, you have, I don't know what it is for head, but you get 2-tap head, 2-tap torso, 3-tap arms, and I think it's 4-tap legs. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, because I feel like it's 34 to legs, maybe. Anyways, AK-74U got a slight change. It still feels like the same gun, to be honest. It's still alright. It definitely feels more like a PDW now, which is good because, it's in the PDW class. And before we get, I know technically I shouldn't talk about these until we get to the other PDWs, but I feel like AK-74U might be one of the new best SMGs because the P90 got hit pretty hard. MP5 didn't get changed, and the UMP didn't get changed, so yeah. P90 was kind of the king. It was like the 3 SMGs. Basically, all the SMGs were pretty good besides the UMP. UMP was just kind of does what the UMP does. It doesn't really feel... Whatever, not the point. MP5 has a lot of recoil now. P90 just was really good, didn't get changed. And the AK-74U was also pretty good. So it was like those 3 were really good, and now the P90 got nerfed. AK-74U kind of got nerfed, but still feels really good. So, I don't know. I don't know what the best new PDW is. I'll probably have to experiment it with the new guns a whole lot more. Yeah. Okay, we are not even anywhere close to being done, and I can already tell this is going to be a long episode. Alright, moving on. ASVAL. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be really, really happy to hear that the ASVAL got hit pretty hard. Was nerfed pretty good, I'd say. Its muzzle velocity got increased to 970 studs per second, which isn't that big of a deal. Ergonomics was also increased to 53. Once again, not that big of a deal. Head and torso projectile damage decreased to 76 and 59. Wow. I mean, when you consider that it used to be a one-shot headshot with 115 head damage, that's pretty big. And its range decreased to 980 studs, and its camera recoil increased to 41. I've got kind of mixed opinions about this because while I do think that the ASVAL definitely should have been nerfed, I do think it has to be kind of good because of its high price tag. But I definitely didn't think that it needed to have a one-shot headshot for its fire rate. I say the ASVAL is pretty decent now. I don't know if it's still worth its price. I mean, maybe it's kind of up to you. It's still got a 45 minimum damage, so it's a 3-tap minimum with a super fast fire rate. But the recoil is pretty hefty and is very noticeable at a range. So put on like any recoil reducing attachment you can. Yeah. I actually took a bunch of notes on this. So yeah, ASVAL is decent now. Its fire rate makes up for the new lack of damage, and it's still a 3-shot minimum, which is pretty average. Actually, I think it's like slightly above average. I don't know. It's around that range where it's kind of average, but its fast fire rate can make up for it. So at CQC, ASVAL is still going to be really, really good, but at a range, this is going to be a lot more difficult to use, which I think is a nice change, and I'm glad to see that the ASVAL won't be absurdly busted. But I'm sure that, ASVAL tryhards are going to be upset, and still people who get killed by the ASVAL are going to be upset. Alright, now moving on to the AUG 1 and AUG 3. These two got the exact same changes, I believe, so I just kind of lumped them together. The guns are no longer laser. Oh wait, I forgot to read the changes. So AUG 3, once again, they're the exact same, so I don't need to say them both. AUG 3, arms and legs projectile damage increased to 38 and 35. Head and torso projectile damage decreased to 89 and 52, and camera recoil increased to 34. So these guns are no longer laser beams, but the recoil is very, very easy to manage, especially with, once again, recoil reducing attachments. Really, really good still. It went from, actually, what they did with the AUGs are kind of interesting because it both got a buff and a nerf. So with the nerf is obviously very big because the AUGs had their one-shot headshot taken away, which can be a problem sometimes, but at the same time, it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. But they also got buffed from a 4-shot minimum, which was 25 minimum damage, to a 3-shot minimum, which is, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a nice change, but it kind of depends on how you feel like what. I don't know. It's such a strange mixture because I don't know if this makes the AUG better or worse because, yeah, one-shot headshot got taken away, which is pretty good, but it may also be kind of like an AK-103, AK-74 situation where it's like, okay, AK-74 didn't have one-shot headshot, however, it was better because it's a 2-tap minimum, and of course the AUGs aren't 2-tap minimum, however, they do more damage now to body, which can be really, really useful. I don't know. I don't know if the AUGs will still be pretty good. I feel like they're a lot more. They feel mediocre, and they don't really feel unique besides the low recoil. So it's just kind of, I don't know, an average gun now, I think. HK416 also got a change, which was muzzle velocity increased to 2,175 studs per second, range increased to 1,350 studs, and ergonomics decreased to 49. I don't have anything to say here. So HK416 is still the HK416, basically. Feels pretty much the same. Whatever. Don't care about it anyways. Now, the MK18, the guy's rate of fire increases to 775 rounds per minute. I think it used to be 750. So once again, a little weird change. Camera recoil decreased to 44. Ergonomics increased to 59. Head, torso, arms, and limbs, legs, not limbs. Projectile damage decreased to 82, 45, 30, 28. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,880 studs per second. Range decreased to 890 studs. Now, this felt like a weird change because I thought the MK18 was kind of in a good middle ground. I think that was the way that they had it was kind of interesting because M4A1 was probably the most vanilla gun out there. MK18 was, faster fire rate, more recoil. Okay, fair trade. HK416 was, even more, even a faster fire rate than the MK18 and more recoil. So it's kind of a nice little trade. It's kind of like pick your poison. If you can control the recoil, try out the MK18, try out the HK416. But if you can't, just use the M4A1. They're still pretty good and still nice. But so MK18 is now a 3-tap to torso and a 4-tap minimum. But, once again, fast fire rate, so I can kind of see how that'll make up for it. So maybe it won't be that big of a deal. But the camera recoil, I feel like, is pretty noticeable because it feels a lot more accurate since the last time I used it, and the fire rate change doesn't feel like that big of a deal. It still pretty much kills at the exact same speed as you'd expect. I'd say the gun got worse, to be honest. Like the fire rate, I don't know if it'll make that much. I don't know. It doesn't make that much big of a deal, and the damage being nerfed kind of doesn't help it out a whole lot because, like I said, it's like only additional 25 more rounds per minute. So it's kind of like a weird situation. I don't really like that it got buffed and nerfed because I never thought, a lot of people used to think that the MK10 was like really, really good, including the best gun in the game. But for me, I just never understood that. I never thought it was that great. So I don't know. The gun kind of got worse, but at least it's more accurate now. So maybe if it's more accurate, it's good. I don't know. A lot of these guns got kind of weird changes, but it's all right. You know what? Not too bad. Not a lot of people use the MK18 anyways. MK18 is still pretty good. You can still use it. But now we get into the other shotgun. Both shotguns got nerfed. So we're moving on to the Belemi. The pellet count was increased to 9, just like the AA-12. Its head, torso, arms, and legs projectile damage increased to 38, 28, 17, 11. Spread increased to 30. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,340 studs per second. Range decreased to 495 studs. Now the Belemi, oh my gosh, I mispronounced it so much. Belemi might have gotten nerfed, but like a cockroach, it's somehow still alive. The thing has been bombarded by nerfs, yet it's still usable. This thing is still pretty good. This goes for both shotguns, but increasing the spread hasn't really nerfed them. It just makes it more random. I feel like they're still pretty good at a range. And, AA-12, you just keep pumping rounds and you'll eventually get the kill. And Benelli still feels pretty accurate, especially at a range. So as long as you kind of just aim center mass, you'll still probably get the kill. Maybe with Benelli, you'll have to fire a second shot rather than just one. Because, like you used to be able just to fire one shot and you could kill at an absurdly far range. But now I feel like you have to make at least 2 now. So it's kind of noticeable, but at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. Belemi is still pretty good. AA-12. It's still bad. It's just kind of bad. I don't know. A12 never really been all that great. I don't know. Anyways, now moving on to the M4A1. I'm trying to kind of fast fire now because I'm sure this is being long. 16 minutes in already. Dang. Alright, M4A1. Muzzle velocity increased to 2,175 studs per second. Range decreased to 1,350 studs. Torso, arms, and legs projectile damage decreased to 48, 34, and 31. Now, despite getting its damage nerf, the gun still feels the same. It's still very basic, and it's still something I'd recommend to new players. Like with most of these guns, you can put on an extended barrel to make the M4A1 better. The extended barrel makes it so you can 2-tap torso and 3-tap arms again. You'll still will 4-tap legs, however, but it's only going to be a big issue if you're just shooting legs and you have bad aim. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it's noticeable and it's still there, so I want to make that, very apparent. If you don't like the damage changes to the M4A1, just use the C7A2 though, assuming you have it, because they forgot to nerf it, and it's basically the exact same stats as the old M4A1. So, PO5 devs, you might want to change that, because C7A2 is basically old M4A1. Just a little thing I noticed. Alright, now moving on to the P90 changes. Muzzle velocity increased to 1,760 studs per second. Head, torso, arms, and legs projectile damage decreased to 48, 32, 32, 26. Range decreased to 880 studs, and camera recoil increased to 29. Let me repeat that last one. Camera recoil increased to 29. Its base stat used to be 15. They practically doubled the recoil on this thing. And yeah, the P90 finally got nerfed, which is great to see, to be honest. Like, don't get me wrong. P90 was the king of SMGs for a while. It's nice to see it get kind of knocked off the pedestal. I don't know if a new gun will take its place or still, it's a 50 round submachine gun, pretty fast, and still does fairly good damage for whatever. And you can just put on an extended barrel and basically revert most of the damage to being able to go back to a 2-tap headshot and 3-tap torso and arms again. You couldn't actually 3-tap arms before, so I think that's a bug. They kind of accidentally buffed it, because I think it used to be like 30 before to arms, and now it's 32. So yeah, once again, PO5, I don't think you meant to do that, and if you did, yeah, change it. Just making it apparent. Anyways, the recoil on this gun is super bad now, at least compared to what it was, of course. It went from base stat of 15, recoil up to 29, like I said. That's basically doubling the amount of recoil. And honestly, this is an absolutely insane nerf when you think about it, because the P90 has been super good, super accurate for such a long time. And it's such a well-deserved nerf. Like, I'm so glad it's here. I'm so glad AS Vol got nerfed, P90 got nerfed, AK-74, I wish it didn't get nerfed, I'm going to be honest, because I love that gun, but it definitely was deserved. Same thing with the AUGs. Well, actually, I don't know if the AUGs really needed a nerf. I don't know. They were kind of skill-based, because, like, one-shot headshot, and they're accurate. However, it's a 4-shot minimum. So, I don't know. AUGs were kind of like, if you're good at them, then yeah, they're good, but if you're not, whatever. Maybe it could just increase the recoil, really. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe because I haven't used the AUG. I haven't seen a lot of AUGs in Operation Resurgence, so I don't think they're that big of a deal from what I've noticed and what I've played against. Anyways, I'm kind of getting off track here. Now we're moving on to the secondaries, which are starting off with the CZ75 Auto, because I can't hold this in anymore. Head and arms projectile damage increased to 52 and 26, which is kind of dumb because now it's a 2-tap head. Torso and legs projectile damage decreased to 30 and 24. Rate of fire decreased to 725 rounds per minute. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,245 studs per second. Range decreased to 485 studs, and ergonomics decreased to 54. That feels so good to say. You don't even know. I'm so glad this gun got nerfed. I've been complaining about the secondary ever since it came out. I am so glad that whenever Operation Resurgence came out, they changed the recoil, and now the recoil is really bad on this gun. I'm not going to lie, but still, pretty good. It's still a pocket auto. It's such a good panic weapon. If you ever run out of ammo in your primary or can't reload in time or whatever, it goes well if you're using a sniper as your primary because then you still have a secondary auto. I don't like the CZ75 being in the game. And I know they're going to add a burst, which is the 93R, and I really look forward to that one because the burst is going to take skill. And a lot of people probably aren't going to use it, but hopefully it will be good. Anyways, CZ75 is still quite good even with the nerf, mostly because the extended barrel reverts it back to its old damage while having a 2-tap to head. I don't know if it used to be 2-tap to head before. I may have to check the stats on that. Hold on a second. So it's 52 now, and the CZ75 headshot damage used to be 45. So it used to be a 3-shot head, and now is a 2-tap. 2-tap. Just, why? I know that it's just... I hate this gun. I hate that it's in the game. I know why it got nerfed. I'm glad it got nerfed. But it still just feels like it's too good. I don't know. I don't like the CZ75. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm really biased to it, so we're going to move on now to the Deagle, and this is probably going to make a couple people upset because it's no longer a 2-tap anywhere. Its muzzle velocity was increased to 1,540 studs per second. Range increased to 666 studs. Haha, funny devil number, whatever. Torso, arms, and legs projectile damage decreased to 59, 42, 40. Camera recoil increased to 75. Good lord. Ergonomics decreased to 42. Now, the gun really doesn't feel like it got nerfed. Well, I mean, obviously it was, but it feels more like it was reworked. The Deagle is now a 3-shot minimum, and with its slow fire rate, it can be difficult to use if you're bad at aiming. And it now takes some skill to use and can still one-shot headshot. So if you're good at the game, the Deagle can be a really good sidearm. Because before with the Deagle, it used to be like, oh yeah, I have one-shot headshot, but I'm also a 2-tap minimum anywhere. So it's like, I can just shoot you twice and you're dead. It was still like, it was absurdly strong. I didn't like the Deagle. I typically use, the high power over it, but high power got nerfed as well. All the pistols got nerfed actually, so we'll get into that later. Anyways, Deagle feels like it's a lot more skill based now. So if you can aim and you can hit heads, then the Deagle is really good. But even now it has a slow fire rate and it's a 3-shot minimum. It can be a bit of a problem. And yeah, you can still 2-tap torso, but honestly, arms kind of cover up the torso in PvP. And yeah, so you're most likely going to be hitting arms and legs unless you can hit heads. So yeah, if like I said, if you can hit heads, it's really good. But if you can't, I'd stay away a little bit. And then we now moving on to the G17. Ergonomics was increased to 60. Head, torso, legs. Projectile damage decreased to 64, 42, 23. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,230 studs per second. Range decreased to 465 studs. And camera recoil increased to 42. The extended barrel makes this pistol a 4-shot minimum again. So not much of a change. It's a fairly decent secondary, especially for the starter pistol. I don't know. It feels kind of the same. It's not that much of a deal. Not that big of a deal. I didn't really use the G17 before anyways, so I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with this, and I don't have a lot of experience with the M9. So take these two secondaries kind of with a grain of salt, because I typically stuck with one secondary the entire time, which I'm about to talk right about now, which is the Browning High Power, now known as the HP. What a stupid name. I'm kidding. I kind of like the new name. Anyways, ergonomics is increased to 58. Head, torso, arms, and legs. Projectile damage decreased to 69, 44, 28, 24. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,245 studs per second. Range decreased to 485 studs. Camera recoil increased to 38. Now, as much as I hate to see my favorite handgun get nerfed, I knew it was going to happen and it was necessary. Extended barrel is now a must on this thing, taking it from a 5-shot min to a 4-shot min. However, extended barrel was already a must before because you could get 1-shot headshot, which was obviously very busted. I'm glad they changed that. It's kind of the same thing with the 74. I'm sad it got nerfed, but I see why they did it, and it was definitely very necessary to do so. So yeah, it's now a 2-tap to head, 3-tap to torso, and 4-tap to arms and legs, which is still pretty good now, considering what the other pistols are like. However, you hit a headshot, the next shot is a guaranteed kill with extended barrel, since the headshot is 75, and the leg shot is 25. So, yeah, you can kind of do whatever you want with that. It's pretty nice. So hit a head, hit whatever, and you got to kill. It's like a 2-tap. I don't know. Just it feels nice. I don't know. It feels kind of. It doesn't feel the same, obviously, because it used to be like a 45 minimum damage. It was 1-tap head, so it was kind of crazy. Because I think it was like 105 damage to the head, and then like 49, 49, 49 to torso, arms, and legs. So almost a 2-tap minimum. It was like, oh my gosh, I just realized. It was like the Pocket AK-74 before this nerf. No wonder why I love them. Anyway, recoil nerf isn't that noticeable, but the gun did get hit fairly hard considering what it used to be. So yeah, I'm kind of sad that, high power got nerfed, but definitely was necessary, and I'm glad they changed it. Now moving on to the M9. Camera recoil decreased to 38. I don't know what it was before, so whatever, I guess. Head, torso, arms, and legs. Projectile damage decreased to 69, 44, 24, 24. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,250 studs per second. Range decreased to 495 studs. Ergonomics decreased to 54. So the M9 got the high power treatment, which made it go from a 3-shot minimum to a 4-shot minimum, with extended barrel, of course. Unlike the high power, though, the M9 went from a mediocre gun to a mediocre gun, while the high power went from arguably the best to a better M9. Only slightly, though. Now, why do I say the better M9? Well, because if you take the M9, put on an extended barrel, take the high power and put on an extended barrel, they do the exact same damage except to arms. I don't know what exactly how much damage the M9 does to arms, but it doesn't it's got like 2 extra damage on the high power to arms compared to the M9. So it's like very, very slightly better than the M9. So M9's kind of worthless now compared to the high power. And it was already not really a great gun to begin with, and the only people that I've seen use it are probably just trying to be quirky or had a faction. And if you say, and I swear to God, if I see a single comment saying like, "Oh, but I use that gun," shut up, I don't care. Anyways, moving on to the Makarov. Makarov, head, torso, arms, and legs projectile damage increased 65, 30, 24, and 22. Muzzle velocity decreased to 1,410 studs per second. Range decreased to 450 studs. Camera recoil increased to 43, and ergonomics decreased to 54. We finally got the Makarov buff, but at what cost? Literally everything. This gun still sucks despite every other single secondary being nerfed. Even with an extended barrel, this gun is a 5-shot minimum. I'm not even kidding, it's a 5-shot minimum. The Makarov is a 4-tap to torso and arms, while being a 5-tap to legs. It's a 2-tap to head, but all the other pistols can do that, including the CZ75 now. The CZ75 can 2-tap head. Do you understand why this is insane? Because it's just... The Makarov isn't special at all, it's just unnecessarily bad. And I can understand they don't want to make it good and make the Makarov, the meta again. But there's a certain extent of making a gun... I don't know. Makarov's just a joke now. Like, it's just... Dude, whenever I looked in the changelog and I saw the Makarov got buffed, I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And then I realized something. They didn't do jack. Nothing changed. Nothing really changed to this gun. It's still bad. It's still completely useless compared to all the other secondaries. So, to wrap this up, unless you are highly skilled and want to show off, I highly recommend never using this thing as your main secondary. That is all of the changes to PvP, or not, I shouldn't say PvP, but to the guns in the game. A lot of guns got hit way harder than some others, and that's a good thing, because all guns don't deserve to be treated equal because they're all different. All the secondaries basically got nerfed, and 2 new secondaries were added. I don't know if that's a thing they're trying to make, all of the other secondaries worse, so people will buy the new secondaries. I don't know what the thought process was there. M17 is pretty good. I'm gonna be honest. I like the M17 a lot. I haven't really used the USP 45 a lot because it's got too much recoil for my taste. That's another reason why I stay away from the Deagle. So yeah, new pistols are nice, but they kind of nerfed every other secondary as well. So I don't know. Whatever you want to do with that. Anyways, that's all I really have to say. My Discord is in the description. Same thing with the Beer and 5 gang, which is like a bunch of YouTubers got together. Yeah, join if you want. It'd be pretty cool if you did. I don't have much to say. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'm just kind of sad right now. Because now that I'm kind of re-looking over everything, I'm just kind of Man, it's just settling in now. It's gonna be interesting how the meta changes though.